Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com. Today we're taking a closer look at, listening to, and installing the Pypes Phantom Series H-Bomb catback, available for the 2018 and newer Mustang GT without active exhaust. Full disclosure guys, if you have an active exhaust equipped S550, this one's not going to be for you, but there's a ton of options that fit your package in the category. Now for the guys without active exhaust, this is the one you want to look at here. If you're looking for a 5 out of 5 on our loudness meter, as you just heard from our sound clips. Now the Phantom H-Bomb here is almost pretty much a straight pipe. Now there are two bullet style mufflers, mid-muffler design I should say, right around the H-pipe included in the kit, which really don't have a ton of baffling in it, very, very minimal at best, which is going to contribute to that extremely loud, very drony sound that you're hearing from the H-Bomb here. Now it does have that H-pipe as opposed to an aftermarket X-pipe you get with most aftermarket catback kicks, so this one is going to be a little bit different than some of the others in the category. It's also going to have 409 stainless steel, which is going to contribute to a lower price tag than you might get with a 304 stainless, something that's got all of the bells and whistles. Keep in mind guys, because it's 5 out of 5 on our loudness meter, this one does have a lot of drone and boom inside the cabin. Now, if you're not really interested in the drony options out there, but you still want that volume, a Borla Attack might be the way to go. They minimize those frequencies. But if you like hearing all of that noise inside the cabin, all throughout the RPM band, especially at wide open throttle, guys, this is gonna be the one for you. I can't think of one that's louder in that case than this one. Now, Pypes does have this Phantom series, which includes black tips. If you're not really into black and you like chrome tips, there are other H-Bomb options available from Pypes, which include the same exact system, but with different tips. Now, the kit does come in right around 800 bucks. Like I said, it's more budget friendly than some of the ones with all the bells and whistles. So usually a catback will come in 1200 or more, 1200 to 1500 is more of that sweet spot, but 800 bucks is definitely a bargain. So if you're looking to save money for the wallet, this one is also a good one to look at. Now, install 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. It's really not going to take too much time at all, maybe 2-3 hours at most in the driveway at home with very simple hand tools. No cutting, no welding required, making it easy enough for anybody with just a little bit of mechanical expertise to tackle. I'm going to show you guys every step of the process, so what do you say we get started? Tools used in this install include an impact gun or a ratchet, an extension, 13 and 15 millimeter deep sockets, flathead screwdriver, and a mallet. Now the first step of the uninstall here under our 2019 GT is to loosen up both of the band clamps holding your stock exhaust to the headers. Now what we're going to do is grab a 15 millimeter deep socket and loosen up the 2 bolts here and on the second one. Now we're not going to fully remove them, just get them loosened up so we'll be able to slide the rest of the exhaust out of place. Now the next step here is to go right under your cross member here, and we're going to remove the brackets holding our factory hangers to the frame. Now these are 13 millimeter bolts. You have the option of sliding the hangers out of these brackets, but I find it to be way easier to just grab an extension and my 13 millimeter deep socket and get these bolts removed. Go right on over the rear sway bar. Just pull those bolts out. You want to keep these because we're going to have to reuse those once we install our next exhaust. Now with those bolts removed, these brackets are actually hooked on to this cross member. So we're gonna lift up and just unhook them and just rotate it down out of the way. Same thing on both sides. With the clamps by your factory manifolds or your headers loosened up, we've got the frame disconnected from those brackets on the hangers. At this point, we're gonna disconnect the stock exhaust from the headers, and I got my buddy Scott here to help me lower it down. If you're working on the ground on jack stands, it's gonna be a little bit easier for you to do by yourself, but since we're so high up in the air, you're gonna wanna have a buddy with you if you're working on a lift. So once we get these disconnected, we're just gonna slide the whole factory exhaust out of the hangers by the exhaust tips toward the front of the vehicle, then we'll be able to set it aside. On these clamps, there's a little bit of a tab holding this on, so you might need to grab a flathead and just peel up on that locking tab that holds it in position. So we finally got my buddy Justin's 2019 GT factory exhaust off the car. It's on the ground here, sitting next to our Pypes Phantom H-Bomb catback. Now, I want to take you through some of the similarities, but mainly the differences between the two kits, because trust me, there are a lot of them. Now, the factory kit here is going to have, your factory resonator up by the front end, which is going to mute some of that sound, reducing some of those higher frequencies, reducing a lot of drones so you don't hear anything interior-wise. It's also going to rob you of some horsepower and torque numbers that you'd otherwise get with an aftermarket X-Pipe or H-Pipe. Now, that's going to be completely different over here on our new Phantom series. Now, as the name suggests, it's an H-Bomb, so it's got the aftermarket H-Pipe that's going to replace your factory resonator. Now, that H-Pipe is going to be a lot less restrictive than the resonator. Might not be as free-flowing as an X-Pipe would be, but you can definitely expect some horsepower and torque number changes thanks to the H-Pipe. Now, it is going to have 409 stainless steel like the rest of the kit, which is definitely going to help. Mandrel bends, which is going to help with kinks that you'll be removing like your factory exhaust has. So the H-Pipe can really come in handy. Moving on from there, typically you'd move into the rest of the exhaust pipe system, but with this particular kit, it's actually pretty unique. The H-Bomb system has the Pypes bullet style mufflers built into the midsection. So those mid muffler designs are going to remove any muffler from under the tips or near the tips at the rear end of the vehicle. That's going to make huge changes for noise. This is essentially going to be a straight pipe, guys. It's going to be loud, it's going to be obnoxious, it's going to be raspy. That's exactly what you can expect here. And the guys looking for all out volume and straight up rasp, I can't think of a better system to get. The H-Bomb has those bullet style with very, very little baffling on the inside. It's completely straight through. The edges, however, of that bullet style is going to have somewhat of a fishnet style design to filter out some of those higher frequencies. So it's supposed to try to minimize as much drone as possible, but trust me guys, as I heard from the sound clips earlier, it's going to be pretty drony. Moving on from there, again, still 3-inch mandrel bend tubing, 409 stainless throughout the entire kit. Again, no mufflers back here, straight pipe design under your rear suspension, moving all the way back to the tips, which are a huge change. You're retaining that quad tip look, but instead of having the 3 or 3.5 inch slash cut tips from the factory that are somewhat polished, not really chromed, these new tips from Pypes Phantom series are black powder coated, have the Pypes name embedded on the side very subtly, have a 4-inch diameter, and are a lot thicker than your factory tips. Now the thickness of the tips I'd say are about 1/4 inch. Your factory ones are like an 1/8 inch, maybe even not even that. They're really thin, they look really flimsy, and the new Pypes just a lot thicker, a lot stealthier, and more aggressive. So big upgrade there at the appearance level, which I think are gonna look really good on that matte black rear valance we have here on our 2019. So without further ado, I want to show you guys what we have to do to get this thing on. We have to transfer over the factory hanger brackets, which we're going to do now, as well as the factory clamps that held onto the factory manifolds. I know I said factory a lot. Sounds really confusing, very simple stuff. I'm going to show you guys right now. To pop these factory hanger brackets off, I'd recommend using some white lithium, PB Blaster, WD-40, something along those lines to grease it up and get it a lot easier for you to handle. Now, we've already used a little white lithium. That's what you're seeing, this little white tip on the end there. We're just gonna pull these straight off and we'll transfer them over. You can also use a hanger removal tool to pop them off too. Now we're gonna swap these over, and you wanna make sure you're taking note of where this tab is at the top. You want that facing the front of the vehicle. From there, slide them on, just rotate them down and out of the way. Now we're going to reinstall our factory clamps onto our manifolds here, and you want to take note of this little locking tab here. That's going to line up in this little cutout to the welded on little button on the outlet of the headers. So let me show you what I mean. Basically going to slide this right into place, line those things up, and seat it all the way back. Do the same thing for the other one. Now you want to make sure you're installing your adapters onto your new H-Bomb H-Pipe before installing it to your factory headers. These are going to basically adapt it and step down to the size that it needs to line up to those clamps we just installed. If you're using aftermarket long tubes or shorty headers, you can skip this step as long as the inlet matches up with the outlet on your aftermarket headers. So we're using the factory manifold, so we're going to install these. Basically insert in here. Just want to seat those all the way back. Once they're seated, grab a clamp, set it over. Now we'll tighten those down in just a little bit. I want to put the H-pipe in place first. Grab it and install it onto your factory headers. Next, grab your 15mm deep socket, tighten down the factory clamps, and then do the same for the clamps you installed on the adapters.
All right, next up, we're gonna move on to the passenger side S pipe. I'm really calling it that just because of the shape here. And this one's gonna have the hanger that we transferred over from the factory exhaust that'll go to our subframe. First, we wanna put a clamp over the inlet, slide it over the muffler or the bullet style muffler outlet. Seat that back while also lining it up to under the subframe. If you don't wanna seat it all the way back, if it needs to be lined up better than that, make your adjustments. That looks pretty good, so we're gonna rotate our clamp up and tighten it down. I like to just get them nice and snug, leave a little bit of room for adjustment. Now we're gonna do the same thing for our driver's side. From here, we're gonna rotate up those brackets and reconnect them to their spot on the subframe. Use your factory 13mm bolts to thread in place, and then grab your 13 socket, and I'm using an extension, of course, over top of that sway bar to tighten them down. What I recommend doing is pulling the pipes apart to try to get that bracket as straight as you can. This one doesn't look like it's gonna wanna go straight. Grab the adapter pipe that connects the previous pipe to your tips, throw a clamp right on over it, and reconnect that. Next up is your tailpipe tip section. Now, this section, this like Y pipe, is not connected to the tip. So put your tips in place, stagger them like you see here, grab a 15 socket and an extension, and tighten them down. I find this to be way easier off car. All right, once you have that taken care of, grab a clamp and install them onto your pipe. All right, now that we have the tips installed, we can slide the hanger into place and connect the pipe. All right, from here you can tighten down your clamps. All right, repeat for the other side. All right, at this point, make any adjustments you need to, go back and tighten everything down. Well, that's gonna wrap up my review, sound clip, and install for the Phantom series by Pypes with the H-Bomb catback, available for the 2018 and newer Mustang GT without active exhaust. And if you like the sound, and you like what you're seeing, and you want it easy on your wallet, check this set out right here at AmericanMuscle.com.